Howdy.
Welcome to the Project Exodus podcast, episode 11. My name's Paul.
Andrew.
Joel.
And we are the three amigos of Project Exodus Corp. It's been a weird past month with all the hurricanes and damage and meetings that we've had to cancel and podcast guests we've had to cancel. So hopefully that's the end of hurricane season. I don't know. But for the time being, as you can tell, we are not at the Salvation Army right now. Currently, the Salvation Army has a lot of people volunteering as emergency responder people staying there. So we are at my house here in Sarasota. And yeah, so that's the differences that you may be seeing. We just ask if you're watching, please comment, like, subscribe. We use all the support we can get. And we got 3 cameras. That's Joel and Andrew. There's Joel. And there's me. And for the most part, I'm just going to keep it on Joel and Andrew. I'm serious over here. But yeah, so what's been going on, guys? What you been up to, Andrew?
Well, since the last podcast and before Milton, God made a way for me to take an impromptu vacation with my son and my lady, and we went to Alabama, to a little city called it's a town called Athens, Alabama. Have you heard of it, Paul?
Yes, I have.
It's close to the Tennessee border.
Podunk town.
Yeah. Yes. So I spent the week in Alabama, and it was great. When I was there, I had a great time. I was kind of nervous to go at first because part of me was like, I just need to be here. I need to hunker down. And then I was like, oh, am I kidding? Let's go.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. I brought Eden. Eden had a blast, and we did some things and some stuff, and it was great.
Yeah, Athens, Alabama is a really unique city. And I don't know if it's unique. There's probably small little country towns like that all over the country, to be honest. But what did you think? Like, what was like a couple of takeaways you had? Like, that's the first time you've really been to something similar like that, or is it just?
I'm from the Midwest, so I grew up experiencing all 4 seasons. It's just been a long time, but it's been quite a while since I've had a vacation where I was sober, and I don't know. Purpose House. Yeah.
Is that what it says?
Yeah. Something Lonnie. So,
hey, what's up, Lonnie? You're live on the podcast. What do you want?
How you were doing? I want to talk to you privately.
Well, you'll have to call me back later. We're recording the podcast live, but you can go on Facebook and watch and comment. Let me give you a call after the podcast.
But
yeah, that's how that goes.
So Alabama was great. I'd never seen so many cotton fields or a cotton field at all in my life, and there's cotton fields everywhere. And so that was kind of like, it was just interesting, It was a lot slower paced than it is here. I went to Publix to get a sandwich, and it took me 20 minutes before I even got to order, and there was 2 people in line and 2 people making sandwiches, and I was like, come on, but the people were nice. Even if they didn't mean it, they smiled, and they were real nice, and they talked funny, and
yeah,
it was cool. I got to try a couple good barbecue joints, Lawler's and Witt's. Recommendation of my best friend Paul here, who grew up there, and I got to spend time with my girlfriend and her family, and and like my son kind of got to bond, and it was just like I didn't know what to expect, but it turned out to be like great. And the drive there took us probably 20 hours or more to get there,
which is not normal. It's usually only about a 10, 11 hour drive if you can go straight through. You have no problems in Atlanta. A lot of people that I've asked about like going to small towns is like they use the word wholesome.
Yeah.
And it's unique. It's unusual for me. I have a hard time going back home sometimes. I think it's because of a lot of the the people that raised me are no longer alive. So like even when I go home, I have to stay in a hotel, which is really unusual to go to your hometown and have to stay in one of those hotels that you looked at like you just didn't realize that's what they were, But it's different, and it's definitely a lot slower. You talk about the food, like I tell people this, like the KFC, the Burger Kings, the McDonald's, the Captain D's, if you will, all of that stuff is way better because the people that work there, it's like a career to them.
We went to Cracker Barrel.
It was being
fire.
a 4-star general at Cracker Barrel is a big deal. Like the people that have been doing it for so long, because there's not like a ton of career options, there's your standard career options of being a doctor, teacher, whatever, construction worker. But, like there's not 50 jobs that have waitresses. There's usually like 1 or 2 restaurants that if you're a waitress there, you make good money in tips, but that's the only job in that city, with the exception of maybe traveling to Huntsville or Nashville or Madison.
Yeah.
And you sent me your location that first night you were there, and that particular neighborhood you were in. I mean, from my earliest childhood memory, my mom used to babysit a guy named Jake that lived in that neighborhood. My good friend Trey Lankster lived right around the corner from where you were staying. Another one of my really good friends lives in that same neighborhood, and then just like a mile outside of that neighborhood, down Huntsville Browns Ferry Road, is where like a lot of my grandmother's side of the family own a bunch of property. I went to an elementary school called Reed Elementary.
Do you remember going to Tate Farms?
Yeah.
When you were a kid, because I was texting, your mom was messaging me on Facebook, and I was like telling her what we were doing, and she's like, "Oh, I used to take Paul there when he was a little kid," and I was like, "It was awesome." These 4 big giant like just boxes filled with corn, and it was like
you play in it like a ball pit.
It was like an adventure. We took a hayride into like a pumpkin patch and picked our pumpkins, and like you didn't have to pay for anything other than the pumpkins. Like you pay $20 and you're in. Here it's like it's a madhouse. We did go during the week and during the day, but like here it just seems like anything you want to do, you want to pet the animals, or it's just they're charging you for everything. But it was awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you got to go experience that. Me and Shelby were going to go, and the hurricane was scary. It was extremely. It wasn't my first hurricane, but it was definitely one of those that when I moved here, the selling point of Sarasota was it hadn't been hit directly by a hurricane in over 100 years. And then Ian came and hit just south of here, and I feel like Ian was worse in a sense. We were out power for a lot longer with Ian than we were for this one. But this particular one, like the eye literally came right over the house. Like,
what was that like?
We didn't stay here. We stayed in Venice. But I like having a baby, having Charlotte, having the family structure. When we discussed like going to Alabama, like I understood Shelby felt safer with her family, and they have a really nice house that built to the most current code and stuff of that nature. And so like that's what we decided to do. But man, I think it was just very taxing. Like we had Debbie in August, we had Helene like 10 days before this one got here. And then now we're getting a direct hit from a category 3. We were forced to move into this house because the old house flooded and it just wasn't getting fixed. And so like what was scary was like, is he going to rip the roof off this new house that we just moved all of our stuff in? What's going to happen? But, God seen us through it, man. Like it was great. We were definitely blessed. I kept in touch with Joel. I think Joel made off better than any of us. In
the penthouse.
In his penthouse. How'd you hold up, Joe?
Yeah, man, it wasn't bad. I think I lost. I did probably better than most. I lost power for like 2 hours maybe, and I didn't even know. I just went to sleep and I woke up with all the lights on. I was like, that's kind of weird. I would fall asleep with every light on. But lost a couple trees at the houses, and lost a couple fences, some pool cages. So that's kind of the anxiety now, is getting that stuff back in shape, and just work, really.
Yeah, it's the community itself, I think, is overwhelmingly prepared.
Yeah.
I know, I don't know. It's just, I guess it's just part of being in Florida. You just don't know. But that's how it was. We spent the first 10 minutes talking about the hurricane and the effects. How do you guys feel now? Does this ever make you feel like leaving Florida? Like, is this
No, man.
No?
And actually, during the hurricane, it was finally the only time I could be alone, and I went outside and just kind of enjoyed the hurricane winds. Just video recording the way it was knocking over trees, and just
She'll pray for peace, and this is what he does.
I have a
He
front
gets
and back
hurricane.
porch, so when the hurricane first started, I got to feel it all from the back porch, from the screened-in lanai back there. And then after the little halftime show, all our neighbors came out during the eye of the storm. We're like, "Is this halftime? What's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know." I went back inside, and sure enough, yeah, we got hit even harder from the front porch. And I watched it on the front porch, out in the parking lot. But my car's parked out there too, so I'm watching like half trees blow across the parking lot. Like,
Batmobile's getting
no. So everything's good, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I think Kelly posted something the other day called, like, I think it's a hurricane fatigue or something, or like I still feel like a ton of adrenaline from it all. And in addition to like the other things that are going on in life, it's I don't know. It's something that I don't think I think I did say a couple times, like, yeah, I'm getting the hell out of this state, but I think in hindsight, it's like, well, it's just part of being here,
You'll probably never experience what you went through with the flooding and the back-to-back hurricanes, right?
It makes you think about knowing, what evacuation zone you're in, what flood zone you're in. If you're going to like buy a house, like you don't want to be in like flood zone. You want to probably be more inland, but I'll tell you, the weather in Alabama was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like 40s at night, and like high of like 70.
You win at a really good time, because
we missed all the colors on the leaves. Some were turning red, but
that's what most people do. They'll just lock up all their stuff, make sure they trim up their yard and their trees and stuff, and watch out for any other trees that are going to fall down, and then they dip out.
It's
up and dip, man.
I got back and all the cleanup was done, and I was like,
yeah. I mean, that's how you do it.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's
people lose their minds though about gas, and
the gas was ridiculous.
I got the drive on the shoulder. It's like I seen people driving, and I saw a sign. It was like, left shoulder open, and I just hit it for like.
Well,
from like Gainesville to like Georgia, I was basically
on the
shoulder doing like
the rumble
70.
strips.
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's it's come and gone. I mean, people are still trying to band together. Like I said, the Salvation Army's closed up. I went by there today. I don't think I told you this. I told Andrew.
The 10th Street or
where we have our meeting there. We're not gonna be able to have the meeting there Saturday.
No meeting, y'all.
So another podcast?
I don't know. I wanted to kind of bounce it off of you guys.
I got the Texas Georgia game 7:30. So I don't know.
Yeah, Tennessee Alabama at 3:30. No, but I mean, should we reach out to the community to see if we could have it at a different location? Maybe reach out to Grace Life.
If anybody has suggestions on Facebook,
if you're watching this, or you hear a podcast, and today's Thursday, so we'd need to like find something really quick. If not, we're going to probably just go.
How long were we looking at? You think it'll be available for the second?
Yeah, I talked to Jim. Jim's game. The reason we mentioned the second is because Project Exodus Corp turns 1 year old on November the 5th. That was the day that we legally and legitimately had Project Exodus Corp on paper. Yeah. But November the 2nd, the same night as the Next Generation Recovery meeting, we're gonna start at 6:00. But that first hour, we're gonna have probably like a cookout. Jim said he would donate steaks. He was like,
"Does homeboy want to cook again?"
Jason?
No.
Chip? Oh, he's talking about Chip? I don't know. I haven't talked to Chip. I don't know.
We'll definitely have to do some work on that, but that particular night, at the meeting, me, Joel, and Andrew are gonna just sit up there and chit chat, kind of like we do here on the podcast, about how we got started, what it's looked like this last year. Maybe a little bit of hopeful outlook of what our vision is going forward. And I mean, there's some big things coming down the pipe for Project Texas, that's for sure. And I'm just really excited. I think it's a good time to sit back and really celebrate what we've accomplished and what this community's accomplished, and appreciate those that have contributed to it. And so, yeah, November 2nd, that's definitely going to be probably the next meeting we have for Next Generation Recovery. There's a chance we may have one next week. And if that's the case, Susie will just move to next week. But yeah, that's been the effects of the hurricane, man. It's been melancholy, stressful.
It's been 1 week.
It's been more than 1 week.
But it gives you a good time to connect with family. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
people are off work for a little bit. It's almost kind of like a little vacation.
I don't know how many weeks.
Holidays type thing.
So we started on the 27th of April, and I think we had, during Debbie or Helene, there was a week we didn't have the meeting. And then there was another week when that church was doing some big event at the last minute. So, I mean, things like this do make me wonder if we should have some type of backup arrangement, or at least a relationship. Or Andrew made a good point. Maybe we should just all load up and go to the speaker meeting. Just like crash the speaker meeting.
Yeah.
Just show up.
Impromptu. It'll be like the emergency plan. Like, if for some reason the meeting's ever canceled, we'll send a notice out to everyone. We're gonna bum rush any meeting in town.
Which one? 12th and Beneva?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone wear your Project Exodus shirts.
Yeah, show up.
We'll just roll deep. You know what I mean?
Just buy as many
Bring your own
50-50
chair.
Todd sitting there selling the 50-50 raffle tickets. That's so
Tonight's pot is $738.
or you can get
some CDs and cassette tapes.
Get you a big one. Yeah, it's so there's some options. I don't know. I don't want to sound like I look forward to there not being a meet on Saturday night, but like Joel was saying, it's like, oh, okay, you could spend time with the family, watch a football game, it's something to consider. I mean, it's all up in the air right now.
I think it's nice getting out though, and connecting with those other meetings on nights I would have already been held up.
We have a better way to communicate too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
Because the last time I had like Bob Clucky, Lori, Don, all these people showed up to the meeting and called me like, "Hey, where's the meeting?" Some people didn't know. We should probably have some kind of way that we can
A bat signal.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean,
just a giant pyramid in the sky.
We were really good about posting, like Facebook posts, every week, announcing it. We still pretty much do. It's I don't know. It's not a lot to do, but I think it's just naturally growing. Like, it's just got this natural chemistry about the way it's flourished. I think I'm still kind of in shock at how many people actually show up to this thing on Saturday nights, of all nights. That there's a lot of people that come. I mean, we've had upwards of 80, 90 people some nights, and I think that has a lot to do with the promotion of it all. But I think it also has a large portion to do with the people that we've interacted with in their early recovery from the Salvation Army and the other recovery homes that now transition into just coming into the meeting.
Well, I think it's also it's a recovery meeting, but it's not a 12-step meeting. It's just kind of something a little different. And if you're an addict or an alcoholic and you're in recovery, and you have nothing to do on a Saturday night, odds are a lot of people are going to probably want to find a meeting and fellowship. Yeah.
Definitely strong fellowship there. It's for people in early recovery. I mean, we have a lot of early recovery, and a lot of people that have been in recovery for a long time that are, big in the community. So,
all right. So, I guess on from that, one of the things I thought about. This is a little bit deeper, but one of the things I was thinking about earlier this week was the restitution of all this for us. Like, I got to thinking of like, why do we do this? like what are some reasons that we are doing this? And one of the things I don't really vocalize a lot is this is my restitution for the bad things I've done. Because there's no shortcomings of the horrible decisions that I've made and the negative impact that it's had on other people. So living my life in a way where I'm helping others consistently, like that's my life's work, that's my life's passion, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I feel like just outside of the norm, I just want to help people. I think that deep down inside, I feel like it's what I owe for the things I've done. And I think when I think about that a lot, I get a little bit emotional about it because it then turns into morbid reflection. I'm really reflecting on those things, and is it I think it's a way for me to make amends for those things to those people that I might not necessarily, that living amends. And I don't necessarily have to be vulnerable about it. I can just be like, oh, I just want to give you a hand. I don't have to really just come out and be like, oh, I did some horrible
I feel
stuff.
guilty.
Yeah. And, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that. I know it's kind of vague, but it's.
No, I like that. I mean, I think about that all the time. Like sometimes they'll just hit me in this wave and I'm like, wow, was all those dark periods in my life actually setting me up to do some really big things and help out a lot of people and set my own personal life up even, you know what I mean? Not just helping other people, but like to totally flip my own life around in the process. You know what I mean? Like as soon as I started helping other people, my life just kept getting better. You know what I mean? It was just weird.
Yeah, it's tough because I feel like I don't deserve any type of praise. I don't deserve any type of a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You're doing, but it's like, nah, like I feel sometimes like I sell myself short in the sense of I still got a lot of work to do to even feel comfortable with, someone being proud of me. And I know I don't want to sound like I'm just being down on myself, but that's a genuine feeling. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's like, I've got to learn to forgive myself and I've got to learn to move on. One of the things that Drew told Andrew, you told me this on the phone, and I've been telling people all week, is like in the Bible, Lot's wife was given one instruction, and it was to not look back. And she did. And then she was turned into a pillar of salt. And Jesus references that. It's like one of the few times he references
that was part of it too. It's like he's the only woman out of the 170 something women that are mentioned in the Bible. Jesus only he only spoke about one. And it's like if all she had to do was just keep moving forward, God had a plan for her life, but she was still wanting to cling to the past.
She was salty.
And just to go deeper into that, one of the really interesting things that led to that was oh man, I'm drawing a blank, but essentially Abraham and what was Lot's? Oh, Abraham and Lot, when there was this big dispute between like their cattle ranchers or their farmers over property lines, and Abraham looks at Lot and he says, "You choose, whatever you want. I'll go the other way." And it says that Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom and Gomorrah, like facing that direction, and slowly it drew him in. And it was this place that was just known for sin and really bad things. And he was headed that direction. He chose that path. And eventually, he was saved from that and got to get out of that situation. And I feel very similar to that. Like I chose a lot of the bad things I did. Like I was headed that direction and I would refuse to choose a different path. But I think now that I've been given this opportunity to escape that lifestyle, I have to quit looking back and dwelling on it in the sense of feeling so ashamed all the time. Not all the time, but when there's definitely a lot of guilt. We talked about going home. Like there's a lot of guilt with me going home because the person that I was when I left was not the person that here is.
How thorough of like a step 8 and 9 did you do? Is a lot of that guilt? Can you free yourself from a lot of that guilt by doing a more thorough step 8, step 9?
Yeah. So my step 8 was pretty in depth, like as far as the people I needed to make an amends to.
Like immediate amends.
Mm-hmm. And I did make immediate amends to a lot of the people that I felt like I had just, like moms, aunts, uncles. There's definitely still a lot of people on that list. And, I mean, cowardice is just the best way to put it. It's a lot of fear, and I reached out to a good friend of mine in Claremont. And this guy was like my Andrew, when I was living there. And we were doing a lot of the same stuff. We just went out to bars, Whiskey Wednesday, and then up and snorting coke. And I got a lot worse than he did. It got to where I was like ripping people off and just taking advantage of people. And he ended up being one of them. But I think the biggest thing that I did as far as a friendly violation was I was being fraudulent to all these people in our circle, and he was the one catching hell for it. Like, yo, where's your buddy? What's up with your friend? This is your guy. And he took a lot of that heat. So I actually reached out to him. He's one of the first people that I reached out to. And it wasn't very receptive. I mean, he said some things like, I love you, man. I wish you the best of luck, but I don't want to meet up with you. I don't want to see you. You're not welcome around here, that type of stuff. And that was, I think the one thing that maybe I failed to realize, maybe a bunch of people failed to realize, is you have to be willing to accept that, accept that some people may not want nothing to do with you. And they may not have the nicest things to say, even if you are being accountable and accepting the accountability behind your actions. You have to be willing to take those lumps.
It's just the fact of admitting you were wrong, that you made a mistake, or that you did these things, and that you want to make it right. You're not that person anymore, and you have. I mean, in step 8, it says you have to do these things. Like those. I think those things only keep you from a relationship with God. If you're unwilling to admit that you're wrong, if you're unwilling to make things right, it just blocks you.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of people on that list, Joe. Like, I'll be very honest. There's still a lot of people I need to make amends to.
Let's find them tonight,
preferably before they die.
Yeah, we got all Saturday night next week.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. It's one I struggle with. It's something as simple as picking up the phone. Yeah,
well, it's fear at this point.
Yeah,
the honest part's there. You're at peace, but
are you willing to? Like, if something came up,
he needs you there to help him push to call the number, to reach out. Yeah, I mean, 'cause otherwise you'll just sit like this for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
because you won't.
Maybe
you need an outside force. I mean, that's kind of really.
I think
just
I don't want to put the. I don't want to put the blame. I don't want to put the blame on all of it. But there was one particular comment I heard at a meeting about the 9th step, and it was from Josh, Miami Josh. He's a hobo.
Oh yeah, Key West.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He said, if you have a financial amends to make, do not make it unless you've got the money to pay these people back. And I feel like I've made the amends that are not financial, and the financial ones are the ones that.
So So the last ones are kind of
the ones that I can't afford to pay back.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you could commit to mailing them $1 a month.
There was a couple.
Yeah. Drop a 20 off to all 17 of those.
There was, I can't remember who it was. I'm thinking.
And
this is how the 9th step works, because I've kind of closed that door on some of them. I can't remember which one it was. Like that's how little it affects me now, because I've had that conversation. But there was a couple of people that were just like, I'm not worried about it, man. I'm just glad you're okay. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm not worried about that $40. Like, what are you talking about? And it's still like, so that,
because those are the ones you could have paid. You're like,
yeah,
like you went through it. Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, like, it's still weird. Like,
you called all the 40 and unders,
dude. If I'm okay with talking about this on the podcast, but like, so there was this stage. There was like a point where a switch went off, where I just didn't care anymore, and like I used that very in passing, but that was the truth. It was like,
just a ruthless thug run around.
I was not working, and I had horrible addiction, fentanyl. And so I would go through my Facebook Messenger and I would look at who was online. And at first, it was like some people that were friends that kind of knew. And I would just try to like junkie stun them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, I'm out of gas. And they would send me money. And then it turned into like old ladies from church that knew my grandparents. And it's like, hey, this is Paul. I'm so and so, or I'm Barbara's grandson. I'm out of gas. And then they would send me money. And then it turned into like friends that I knew from third grade that hadn't seen me.
Yeah.
And they would send me money. And shortly after that, you know, I'd always be like, I'll pay you back tomorrow, like, whatever. And the next day I would just block them or I would just ghost them. And I went and added it all up, like the Cash Apps, the PayPals. It was really easy to kind of go look. And it was, you know, a couple $1,000, $3,000 in $40, $50 increments. So you do the math. I mean, there's that many people that I've scammed.
It's not that bad, actually.
Well,
I thought you were going to say something a lot worse.
but that's
just scam.
But like
that's
that's
just
but that's
financial
not who
amends.
Paul is.
No, but that's
And
my truth. And I'm saying those are all
Yeah.
financial amends. And
Yeah.
these are all people that at the time that didn't know me with using drugs. They just knew it was this Christian kid
Yeah.
that preached that moved to Florida.
I bet you felt bad the entire time before you even asked. You were probably like, I don't want to do this.
I mean, there was some moments where I felt like I got caught, like the jig was up. And
Well, at what point was that? Because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about if you take the same human and they're in this environment, you know, for the past couple of years, as opposed to this one, or grew up in this home, you know what I mean? Like if you took two twins and separated them at birth and one went and lived in this household, or one was in poverty, one was in a wealthy family, whatever the deal. You know what I mean? Like at what point were you feeling that the craving for the drug was, because at that point when you're craving like that, it's really your body's like, if we don't consume the substance, we're dying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or through horrible withdrawal, which was, I mean, at what point were you looking at that as a moral, because your moral compass starts sliding around when your
well,
body
I mean, it got to a
is
point I was robbing gas stations,
Yeah.
like there was just this, I had zero empathy.
from a guy standing in front of a church.
Right. A
As
completely different person. I know a good comparison or a good understanding for that was, so when I first got picked up for the robbery before I bonded out and then went and lived in the woods for 6 months, the detective came to interrogate me like you would see on First 48, like pulls me in a room. And of course I'm just denied it now, but he makes this comment. He goes, we went, like this happened here. They thought I had left the state. So they drove to like all of my groomsmen's houses in Georgia and Alabama, and then my mom's house in South Carolina looking for me. And they were going into these people's houses saying, hey, have you seen Paul?
How much was the get? How much did you get from the gas station?
$160.
$160. They go out of state.
Yeah, Polk
Florida
County doesn't play.
Florida's not. Yeah, Florida runs
They,
around.
they did some weird
$160?
stuff. I mean, I was getting phone
It's
calls.
because of the actual gun. I can't be. For
Well,
the
there was no gun actually pulled, so they never.
So you didn't even have a gun.
I
Did
had
you have
one
a-
in my pocket for sure, but
Was
like,
it was a highlighter, wasn't it?
no, it was a real gun. But thank God I didn't pull it because that's automatic prison. Like that was like the difference between those two charges.
Like a mandatory 10 or 5 years,
something
5-year
like that.
sentence.
But to bring it back, like I had I had 4 or 5 groomsmen in my wedding party that were like my boys, and all of them were like done with me. You know what I mean? At this point. But one of them Chris called me and he's like, hey, where are you? I'm like, at the time I was actually at
You were
Florida Atlantic.
You were cop?
I was working a security job.
Guess.
No joke. I was working a security job at a concert for cash, like to just go get high. And there's cops like standing next to me. And I don't know that the detective is doing all this. I'm still unaware. And he's like, whatever you do, you need to do it, make right by whatever you've done. Are you sure? I'm like, dude, I'm standing next to the cops right now. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just being, I didn't do this. But they went and questioned my ex-wife because when they had interviewed, like originally, I go back to this gas station and they let me go because they had no way to prove it was me. But they got, at that point, they was like, oh, we've got this suspect. Right. And that's when they followed up and did all this stuff. But they went to my ex-wife because I had made up this facade like, oh, I'm just, my wife's at home, da 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 da. And they found her. And she was like, no, we haven't been married for like 2 years. This guy's fucking crazy. He probably did do this. They showed her pictures like, yeah, that looks like him, like she's, but even then I'm like, I don't give a shit what she said. Like I was so delusional to the problems that I had that every one of these other people in my life, the people that really would care about me, were all wrong. Like that's looking back at that now, that's how I know I was not the same person I was before and the person I am now, because I was kind of hoping something bad would happen to me. I mean, I had to have this ultimately, just like I'm either going to die out here or I'm going to rip everybody off until they get me. And I don't know. It's kind of weird to even really go back to those thoughts that I was having in those times, because even then it was just like,
it's just a downward. I mean, it's progressive. I mean,
I would go weeks, 3-4 weeks, and just it would go by so fast, and then I'd have these little moments of like clarity, where I'm just like, what am I doing? Like I don't want to do this anymore. And then it wouldn't last long, but
off the detox.
Oh no, I just would keep going until or detox, overdose, and it was like, it was awful, dude. But like when I was using, I mean, I wasn't who I myself, and I was doing all kinds of.
I remember when I got it wasn't my second DUI in Florida, but I think it was like a leaving the scene. I think I was out on bail for a DUI, got another leaving the scene like a month later.
Classic Joel.
As soon as I walked out of jail, I went straight to the gas station right there and bought some beer, and then walked to go get, slammed them as I went to go get my car out of the impound or whatever. Right. So it was like, because I was at that level where I was like, I'm just going to die or have to stay drunk at this point. I'd ruined my entire life. You know what I mean? And that's where I was at. It wasn't usually, it wasn't on some type of moral. It was a moral kind of punishment to myself.
Yeah.
That's other people.
That's a good way to put it too. Like, I don't, it's you. I don't know. I tell people this all the time. My ex-father-in-law said, he said, you gave away everything for nothing. And that was such a pivotal moment. Like I had already escalated the using and the lies and all this stuff to a point. But I remember when I heard that, I was just like, fuck everybody. Like after that, it was just like, I didn't care. I didn't care to live in the woods. Like I remember being in the woods telling people, man, this is the best I've ever had.
Freedom.
No responsibilities. But I was stealing candy from the Dollar Tree just to feed myself. Like I would sneak in there.
What was your go-to?
Oh man, I don't think I really had a preference. I remember being in jail and like the sour gummy worms were really good.
Yeah, that's sour. Yeah.
But I like it. I like peanut.
Anything that wasn't jail food was good.
I had these two friends that these two acquaintances. Their name was Otis and Juju. There's this white girl. They live in these little hotels and stuff. But they would use me because I had a truck, and they ate Milky Ways like you wouldn't. People like they would sell drugs and stuff, and people would literally bring them Milky Ways for drugs. Like it was the craziest thing. But I found out
horse trading for drugs with candy.
I found out later,
very
like
specific.
When I first got arrested, they like.
There's a need. Everyone's got a need,
When I was first arrested, like I was senile in jail. I was like screaming, like it's so wild because I remember it, but I felt like I had no control over it. It was going through detox, and they sent this lady down, like give me a mental health evaluation.
But just the withdrawals and
dude, it was insane.
Yeah.
And she was like, what are you craving right now? And I was like, peanut M&Ms. She was like, yeah, that's part of it. Like that dopamine hit, that sugar rush. Mm-hmm. That's what your body's craving. And it makes a lot of sense, like why people's teeth are rotted out and stuff, like a poor hygiene, eating horribly, like, I don't know. It's one of those things that it's a humbling experience. I'm glad I had that experience because it takes me to a place of understanding how bad life can get if you just stay in that unwillingness to change. Like if you can take it to an extreme of living in the woods, ripping off your friends, like
Yeah, I mean that's you said it best. Like, I always think of it as kind of like going off to war. You know what I mean? Like your own personal war. You know what I mean? You live down in the woods, you know what I mean?
I lived out in the woods. Good.
Yeah, yeah.
I would rent my car out to drug dealers, and one of them would let me stay at his house, his family. But like,
Yeah.
I had all my stuff packed up in the car, so they didn't want all my stuff in the car while they're riding around doing God knows what.
So
So
he-
I got like Tupperware bins of all my clothes and stuff
Yeah.
stacked
Same.
in a dope house, and I'm just there like
So they
hanging
traded
out in a place that's
so the family kind of traded their dope son, the dope dealer son for you.
they were just
You
they were
stay
all they were smoking Molly and like it was like
Who's the guy on the couch this week? Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you remember?
It was
So when Andrew went to Alabama, like the first thing he did was I guess he went to her grandparents' house. And he's like sending me all these pictures of this Alabama football memorabilia.
Yeah.
Dude, I had autographed pictures from Nick Saban that says to Paul in these Rubbermaid tubs, along with our family's legacy photo albums, yearbooks, social security card, like everything, like footballs, like just all this stuff I collected over the years. I had a Magic the Gathering collection that had to be worth, upwards of $30,000-$40,000 in these tubs that I was leaving at someone's tent in the woods. Eventually, some tropical storm came through and it all got soaked, it all got ruined, or it got stolen. But I remember going in the woods, like I'm just going to leave this here with the idea that I'm only going to be living like this temporarily. Like I was so delusional to think like I had no reason to believe that I would be getting out of this or anything was going to change.
and then you're building like like a community back there.
Yeah.
Permanent
Air
home.
conditioning.
Retirement village.
So there's from the psychological standpoint of homelessness and rampant drug use or mental health issues, there's basically three types of homeless people. There's the denial homeless people that feel like, I don't need a tent or whatever. I'm just going to be here for a couple of days and this will be over. And then you have the people that are somewhat accepting, like, oh, if this is serious, I'm going to make the best out of it right now and stay with someone that has a tent. And then you have like the lifers, the ones that are like,
got the shopping carts.
this is it, and this is the life. Oh, there's a mattress. Let me go build a, hut in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, but so a lot of that's not necessarily different degrees of denial. It's different degrees of acceptance.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like,
so I experienced all three of those. Like the first,
in order too.
yes, in that order.
you
When I got to the third stage where it was like accepting that this was life and I was going to ride this out, like I'm calling pre-trial release every Wednesday. Like I'm in touch with my public defender. I'm faking an address, just going through the rigmarole. But in the woods, like I would go to like communities that were under development, like they're building new houses, and I would go to like their roll-off dumpsters. And I would like raid their dumpsters of the scrap plywood, 2x4s. And I had this like really, really nice constructed cabin in the woods that was like a 24 by 24, like with a wall down the middle.
did you name it or anything?
No, when I got
This is some of the stuff that he would tell me when we were bunkies that I was just like,
dude, I
was like, this guy doesn't even need to be in here. Like he didn't even rob the Circle K. Like it's somebody else.
Dude,
It's just a nice homeless guy I'm laying next to.
No, just his background and everything.
I'm going to explain this. Like this is legit.
I was like, this guy doesn't need to be in jail right now.
Angela probably could tell you about this. She had to know, but there was another guy that was just always like robbing Harbor Freight. And he shows up to camp one day and he's got this wagon and it's got a generator, a solar powered generator. And I ended up like trading him some drugs for it. Like, I mean, it's probably like $1,000 thing.
Did you charge your phone with it or?
No, I put the solar panels on the roof of this cabin and powered a wall unit air conditioning
There you go.
and a little mini fridge. Like I had running hot water.
You talk about the penthouse,
Dude, I had like a elevated water tank that would catch
It's
rainwater.
gravity fed.
And it was gravity fed, and it had black tubing, so it would there would be heat involved. It was wild. Like I had citronella
This
plants.
dude had too much
How
time.
far out in the woods off like a main road? Yeah. Like how far of a walk are we talking?
So there were trails. I would say like as the crow flies from like as the
He doesn't ever remember the walk.
how long?
It was probably like a 5-10 minute walk.
Okay.
But I mean, it was it was in a state park. So this is what was weird. They kept kicking us out of all these properties. So we went to a state park, and it was right on the Shingle Creek, which it's like alligator infested. But it's got fish. Like I had trot lines out there.
Yeah.
I had cleared out this area where I had put a deer stand up. I had a compound bow. Like I was like shooting coons.
Yeah.
So imagine if you like
Really brought
were
the
retired or you're out in Montana for like a month, like you could just homestead,
Like
my guy.
I will say there was a guilty pleasure to it all, because there was like this sense of just being like, if I was ever going to experience what it'd be like to rough it out in the woods, I feel like I won that game.
Yeah.
But,
Except you have to like ripping off
Yeah, there is
everybody.
there is that sense of feeling of not just freedom, but like accountability and
No responsibility.
yeah, just that I still recognize to this day, like that pressure where you got no place you got to be tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? Like there's
I felt like I was going to beat the case I had. I didn't have much in the woods, but I had my discovery, which was a stack of papers this big. And the reason I thought I would beat it originally was because the clerk, they gave her a photo lineup, and she actually identified a completely different person as the person that robbed her. So in my mind, I'm like, they're never going to be, and of course, everybody out in the woods is a criminal, and I'm talking to them about it, like, oh yeah, they'll never be able to pin this on you.
Yeah.
So I remember going into this like, okay, I started on the corner of John Young Parkway, maybe 5 or 6 miles from where I ended up establishing myself, if you will, with nothing but the shirt on my back. And I just told myself, like, if I was going to make positive or light out of any of it, it's like, all right, I'll give this a year. Let's see if I can make it back in a year, like from nothing to something. And that was kind of what kept me challenged. That and the meth and fentanyl fueled the drug addiction, like kept me going. But I mean, to this day, like I tore my ACL in my right knee. I've never went to a doctor about it. It still bothers me to this day. I got cut with a machete, had all these stitches in my arms. Like,
you stitch it yourself?
No, I blacked out. I had lost so much blood. Someone was generous enough to drive me to the hospital, and I woke up on an operating table. It was the weirdest thing. And
Free stitches.
the doctor told me, he was like, yeah, you should have died. You lost like 80% of the blood in your body. Like it was bad. And
Where is that at?
out in the woods.
No, on your body.
So
Right over the wrist though.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they cut me on my thumb across my wrist there, but like I still can't move this thumb correctly. Like
If someone hit you with a machete?
No, it's I don't know. It's a weird story. So like when I was homeless, when I got out of jail, my truck was in an impound, and I got my truck out, and I met some people, and I drove to this camp off in the woods, and so I was sleeping in my truck. Well, there was another guy in that camp that was just crazy as shit. He carried a machete around with him everywhere. And he had kept some work boots in the pasture floorboard. I was asleep in my truck one night, and I don't really remember much about this interaction, but what I was told was that he went into my truck from the pasture side to grab his boots, and he had the machete in his hand. And I jumped up like in a panic and grabbed his arm, like, what are you doing? And he pulled back, and the machete cut my hand.
Yeah.
And it was a really weird thing. I'll tell you what's funny. When I got back from the hospital back to this camp, I still didn't know what happened. And I get there and I run into someone. They're like, oh my God, we're so glad you're okay. I'm like, well, what happened? It's like, D cut you with a machete. And I'm like, well, where is he? He's like, oh, he feels horrible. He's been crying all night. And so I walk up to him, and I've already got it made up my mind that I'm going to be like, hey, man, I forgive you. No big deal. I walk up and he goes, hey, man, I just want you to know I'm sorry, but that was your fault. He's just like immediately. And he goes, I've been fasting. all day because I felt bad. And there's a guy next to me.
Because he was homeless and had
He's
no
got a
money.
big bag of pretzels. As he's saying that,
No.
he's like, "Can I get one of those pretzels?" It's like it was the weirdest thing, but like wild stories. Like D's in jail right now, and I've actually reached out to him over the last 2 years. Like, hey man,
Did you ever lose that machete?
no, he's just nuts. The one thing I would say about that environment is I don't think a lot of people realize how much of the people that live out there are just dealing with mental health issues, schizophrenia, paranoia, whatever all that is.
Well, how much do you think, substance abuse issues is undiagnosed mental health and diagnosed? I mean,
I think a lot of people are self-medicating.
Yeah.
Right? Like they've got this real issue. And for some reason or another, the medication they have been prescribed or haven't been prescribed, or the professional they refuse to see or that they have seen is giving them something that they don't enjoy taking that maybe gives them a different effect. I think methamphetamines does help. No, I take that back. I think methamphetamines causes an effect similar to quieting the voices in your head for some people. I'm not saying that that's okay, but I think that living in the woods and Andrew's going to the bathroom. But I think living in the woods and being able to not hear people say, "Oh, you're crazy, you need to take medication," when they obviously are, it's like, what are you going to do about it? Like I'm out here living on my own, and it's a really sad case because the particular area that I was in did not have the programs and support that Sarasota does. Andrew always talks about he would go out and then go to detox. Like, I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah. So, like, what do you think the population was in the woods out there behind the hotels or whatever?
So, within like a
couple hundred at a time?
Oh, way more. So there were like different areas. Like each camp probably had 100 people in it, and there were probably 10 camps within a 3-4 mile stretch. And it's a tourist area. So
how many people ever brought up recovery?
Never.
Just
never once.
no one even said, "Hey, I got stuck doing this meeting." No one. You never saw a keychain. You never saw.
So I think what even is really a telltale sign for that is Angela B, a little short Queens Lake. She was in the same woods I was in, and I never met her. And she was actually in those woods the same amount of time. She actually got arrested 2 days before I did, and her sobriety date's 2 days before mine. And she was out there that's in December. Never crossed paths with her once. We knew all the same people. She knew where my tent was, but she didn't know who I was. And I would have known if I seen
penthouse.
Yeah,
You mean your penthouse?
Yeah,
you had a tent at this time.
I mean, it changed, it evolved. But what's wild is when she went to jail, her dad found her recovery program, and the closest one was here. Yeah. Kelly went and picked her up from jail. So, like, to just give you like an idea, like people are migrating across the state 2-3 hours to find something. And I think me and you talk about this a lot, and I'm sure we have. Like, I think my passion for doing this Project Exodus stuff, a large portion of it comes from like the hope that one day I can go back to those woods,
save those woods,
and say, "Hey, there's a spot. There's a spot for you. We got a spot for you."
I could say, well, for me, what I value most about being in recovery this time is the bonds I've made. That I've nurtured and developed with you guys and some of the other people I know in recovery, and it's been like vital for my well-being. Even like now, like even like today in this moment, like I'm kind of been like struggling, and if I can help somebody find a friend like that, somebody who cares enough to give them a chance, to give them some hope that, like, hey, I've been there and I know what it feels like, and you can get out of that if you want to. Like,
yeah, I think one of the things that it's probably a false, expectation that's not realistic, but I felt like if I could walk back in those woods and those people recognize me, like, "Oh, that's Paul, dude, you weigh 100 pounds more than the last time I seen," like, and be able to connect with them on a level of like, hey, look, You
Maybe
can
we
do
could
this.
plan that out. We could pack some. We could pack some
Yeah,
bags and
like,
go and to
You
hand them
remember
out.
me? I used to get cut by machetes out here. Like, come on. Like, I'll help you. I think the weird thing about that, I think the thing that I don't trust about it is that you have to want it. And I don't know if me showing up in a nice car is enough for somebody else to say, "Oh, I want it."
Yeah.
But
Well, because everyone thinks they're different than everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
oh,
plus-
there's no helping me. That.
well, plus, I mean, you'd have to have a good connection. If we ever do something out there, I think like a good connection with a detox center out there. You know what I mean? I mean, how else do you? I mean, if someone's looking at you like, I am not going through freaking withdrawals, man. Like, what are you talking about?
I think also having a good connection with the jails is vital.
Yeah.
Like, because, I mean, most everybody's heard me in Andrew's story. It's like, I just didn't know there was somewhere to go. Like here I went through the worst parts of my detox.
Right.
I've went through the worst parts of like the
I got you,
scary
I got
part
you.
of going to a detox
Right.
is not having the drugs. Well, I've done that.
But it was a forced detox.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well,
how
3
do we
days in
make that-
detox. The Marchman Act's never enough time
No.
away from the drug. So
it's like, how do we, not bribe, but how do we convince someone to go willingly into a detox? Yeah, you guys got sober in jail.
We got lucky.
I think
Yeah,
it's
man.
like what we talk about though too. Like I mean, we just
So it's-
recovery needs to be attractive.
Yeah.
Like if
Make recovery cooler than
or just
a
like
tent out in the woods.
people that
That's hard
like
to
the
do.
best thing you could do for the people in the woods is stay sober and build your life, like a life that's you're proud of, that people can say like, holy cow, like I literally lived in the next 10 over from this guy and he was out here robbing Circle K's.
I remember Alan told me it's like that, like dealing with the homelessness population from a drug recovery standpoint, it's like the hardest thing to do. It's like rare that you get anybody to come from that environment to sober living, like or to make that journey.
Well,
You
to
got
make it
people-
work, because
you got
I'm dealing with that right now. I mean, like I said before we started this, like I have someone that doesn't fear the streets, living on the streets. Well, that's half my game right there. You know what I mean?
What happened to Rob? Have we heard from him?
I have not heard from him. I was going to ask you about
Yeah, he was on the hot team last time I heard from him, and I think he was talking about going into assisted living.
Yeah.
And that could be the case. If anybody's heard from Rob, please let us know. But that was what I'm talking about when I talk about mental health issues and homelessness. I think that Megan talks
Howell,
about that so much. It's like it's not. I don't think the drugs are the biggest issue. The biggest issue is really just like their mental health issues have not been treated.
Yeah, but from my experience with that person, I think that's a lack of honesty too. And I think a lot of those guys that I see that are coming into halfway houses in their 50s, 60s, 70s, just the lack of honesty, even in those older years where you think at some point, I always looked at honesty like, you just like progressively get a little bit more accepting and honest with yourself. I mean, that's what recovery is. I mean, first step through the last step's just about fully
and
being honest.
it's really too like getting better at saying no. You know what I mean? Like, I never had the strength to say no to stuff at all.
Like a substance or
just like
a
if,
people pleasing.
like
What
a
do you mean?
peer pressure type of thing. Like it was something that I would walk right into. Like I don't mean to be too like detailed or graphic, but I remember forever I was like, I will never touch meth. I'll never put a needle in my arm. But somehow I walked right into those things that I had a disgust for, like for all my life. Like I was like, I would just willingly walk into these areas that I knew not to go into.
Well, are you talking peer pressure? Or are you talking like the desire to be cool and to fit in, superseded,
or seeing
intelligent,
other
logical,
people? I mean,
rational?
just seeing other people get high on so much less than it took for me to get high in a different form, if that makes sense. Like, I remember the first cigarette I ever smoked was a Vantage Ultra Light. And then before too long, I'm smoking Cowboy Killers because it's like I had to have a stronger, more intense high.
You were trying to find a solution
Yeah.
through more
Like, who
progressive
drinks
use.
4 Locos because they love the taste?
Right. Put them on ice.
Yeah.
4 a day. Ain't bad.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, like, I think that
Why are you looking at me, man?
there's, like, I
I
think
could
that
never finish one of those
for
things.
most
Oh, man.
addicts
Green
is
light.
that, we just have a hard time saying no to stuff that we know is bad for us because other people are obviously enjoying it in some fashion. We can't, like, now it's like I have a hard time setting boundaries in relationships. It's like, I'm not talking about the one with Shelby necessarily. I'm talking about like in my friendships. Like it's just, he gotta go.
No, you just I don't know. I've been like holding back fucking like tears this entire time.
Get it, man.
Why? What are you crying about?
I don't even want. I don't even. I'm trying to like stay focused because
Open up, man. If
I
you have any platform
Huh?
in
Be
life
honest.
ever,
know.
What's going on, Andrew?
Jesus.
I don't. I can't. I don't want to go into details.
All right. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Just put it off.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. Like it's been a long time since I've felt like hurt. And like, and I just feel like
Betrayed.
I don't know. I just feel hurt.
I mean, I
I feel angry, and then once it like it's back and forth between anger and hurt, and like once the anger settles down, it's like I'm trying to like I don't know, man.
yeah, no, I get it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know we have to be careful walking around this subject. You kind of you
I just want to do what's right, and I
I
just
don't
want to do what's
necessarily
right.
care to do what's right. In the sense that I need to do what's best for me, because I know if I do what's best for me, it has a trickle effect on those around me. And that may be in a
I
sense.
think it works the other way around too.
Well,
Like it trickles either way, whether it's the best for you is like it's beneficial for the people around you, or if you're not, then it's detrimental to the people around you.
because at some point it's, I don't know, like that's what I mean with like setting boundaries. Like my job, I love my job, it's fine, but it's just like very unfulfilling, and I understand that that's the placeholder. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be something more than what it is. It's supposed to be this placeholder and it keeps me, it's kind of like that girl at the gym for Joel.
Yeah,
It's like that thing.
it allows you to hope for something
It
bigger.
makes me work harder
Yeah.
in these other areas as a
Right.
form of escaping this, redundant, monotonous daily
Rat
grind that I'm
race,
doing.
yeah.
Chase your dream, man. It holds a purpose right now.
Right. And, it feeds my family, it pays the bills, and it keeps me something to do every day. And some people would say gratitude and being humble, and I don't disagree with that.
Well, do you ever practice gratitude? I mean,
Give me an example.
a couple years ago, you were living in the woods. So, like, when you feel like your job tomorrow is mundane, like,
Lisa
you take
said
that moment to appreciate that.
Lisa tells this story about how she was sitting on Siesta Key, like that little, what do they call that thing where they serve food?
Pavilion, or
Yeah, and she was like sitting there, it was slow, and nobody was coming in, putting tips in the jar or something, and she was complaining about it. And she had a moment where she's sitting there on the ocean at sunset, reading a book, and she reminds herself, I paid $2 a day to be in jail, and here I am complaining.
Yeah.
And I try to remind myself of that in hard, stressful situations, but I don't ever remind myself of that when things are great.
Right.
Like,
And you don't practice it daily or anything like that.
and I don't want to sound like I'm like a super ungrateful person at all. I just, I think it's just one of the traits that one of my character defects is I'm wanting to push the gas and go. I want to just I want this stuff now. I want it in my pace. And, I think that also affects other things. I'm just complacent.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily complacent.
Trying to rush, you want stuff now.
Yeah. And it just carries over. Like I have a bad attitude. I'm in a bad mood.
I think a lot of that's healthy too. You know what I mean? Like, when I think about, what I'm really getting out of life right now, and it's not even the goals. It's empty in my tank every day. I mean, those when I look back at like, last week, I'm like, okay, that's like the fulfilling aspect of it. Like I put everything I had into that, and that's setting me up for success later.
I feel like it's also like, I'm glad you said that because it's like this is where we get the calluses. You know what I mean? Like this is where we get that raw experience of pain and sacrifice because it's necessary for that next area of growth.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you know what I mean when I say calluses, like if you've ever worked with your hands, like you get these calluses on your hands. But those first few days, man, you got blisters, you want to wear gloves.
It hurts.
But once those calluses set in, now you're tough. Like your skin's physically tougher because of the pain and beating that you had put it through. And I feel like we're in this blistering stage of trying to get these calluses. I mean, you're feeling you're feeling the burn in an area. You're emotional. I'm stressed, but we understand that this is a long game.
Yeah.
I'm glad I can feel these things today. And my first thought isn't to want to run away. Although I don't want to feel this way, I can feel it, and I know it's going to be okay. And I have people that I talk to, and my first thought, second, third, fourth, fifth, there's no thoughts about like that picking up a drink or a drug is going to make me feel better. Like this, I think that's like the gift of recovery for my whole life. It was like I had to have something. I couldn't deal with life at all. And although sometimes it's difficult to deal with the swings of life, it's up and down, but I'm grateful that I can sit and I can feel this today and feel like crap, but then know that, tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
Or I could think back to 2.5 years ago when I'm living in a drug dealer's house and he's got my car and I'm hoping he comes back,
Yeah. Yeah. I can't help but
little did he know I was driving around, the car wasn't insured, and
Yeah.
God forbid he got pulled over.
I can't help but feel like sometimes I get this feeling that even when life it seems like it's overwhelming, I still have a crazy irrational fear that there's just this storm still brewing. Like the worst is still yet to come. Like it's not done.
It's like you're gonna fall, or there's
Like
something
there's
that's
just
coming
this
back to get you.
bigger, more emotionally tied, destructive. Like potentially,
Maybe you're building more calluses now.
Forget some
next
unfinished
storm.
work emotionally.
well, maybe the worst hasn't got here yet. Maybe all this stuff that I've been going through
Preparing you.
is not as bad as what's coming. And I don't know. Again, I said it's an irrational fear, but it's like I can just feel it.
Like, full year out in the woods? I mean, what's
no,
coming?
not necessarily that, but like
Cat 5.
like how.
Yeah,
I mean, me and Shelby and Charlotte have a really strong connection, and I have good connection with their family, my family. I'm not saying that there's something coming from that aspect, but like I don't know. I get this weird, uneasy feeling that something, whether it's with work, I was sitting at work today, like, man, I'm that far. I have no reason to feel that way at all. Like,
yeah. I have that constantly. Generalized anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I woke up this morning. I'm like,
So all day at work, like I only worked till 12 today, but literally spent 4 hours there, like uneasy, like waiting on Steve and Jake to just come in and fire me for some reason.
yeah. I got the same anxiety
Those are
issues.
rubbing off on you.
No, I mean,
Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you ever think about, because this is all public, so do you ever think about people from Athens, Alabama? People that you've screwed over, like seeing?
constantly, dude. Like, yeah, I got this one group of dudes that like
They're headed up here.
But like, I had somebody tell me that
I
like,
wish they would. I mean, I would love the opportunity to like talk to them, but
I had someone say to me that they're like, they're like worried about people seeing what I'm saying. And I'm like, I don't care. I did these things,
yeah, like,
and people need to hear that. People like me who haven't found a way out, they need to hear that, like, yeah, I did crazy stuff. And although we laugh about stuff, it's not funny, really.
well, I think that's another reference to Lot's wife. Like I'm not really looking back at that and going, with a ton of shame. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel bad about what I did, but I'm in that process, like Joel said, like cleaning up my side of the street. Like I'm just really trying to filter through this stuff over time. But there's just, I don't know, there's just these. I think for me, it's like when life is just going so good, and then something happens, and then you power through it, and you're like, okay, well, what's that next something? What is it going to be? Because it's going to have to be pretty bad to take me out, and I know that the devil's a lie. Like he's going to bring something, and I don't know. It's a weird concept.
What's good about that? And
We
what
should have Sonya on. Sonya probably got a damn catalog. Tell us what all this stuff is.
I've been doing the same thing for the past 3 years. Like I got that phantom fear. That's how I woke up this morning. I woke up and I'm like, all right, what is there to worry about? And then I had to talk myself in.
Just trying to find something.
And I was like, man, like every goal and every dream I've ever had is still in play. And I was like, all right, get in the shower.
Joel said that to me the other day. I was down in Venice, and Joel doesn't just call me off a whim for nothing. Like I told Joel on the phone the other day, it's like, I know I always call you when I get off work, and I know you're in the gym. Like I know what Joel's doing just because Joel is
4:45. I know.
He's a creature of habit. He's like, he knows who's calling. It's like those text messages we get when we wake up and we go to bed on Facebook Messenger and on our phone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I know it's coming. I know it's bedtime. When I see it.
But I get this phone call. Shout out Ronnie. I get this phone call at like 2-3 in the afternoon, and it's Joel, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is unusual. And I answer the phone, and this is during the hurricane stuff. Hey, what's up, man? He's like, I just had to call you, man. I just woke up and I was just thinking about all the shit you've been going through, man. I was check on you and make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
And I was thinking,
I had a little talk about it too.
I was
thinking brief, but
I was thinking about something. I was like, damn, is it that bad? Joel's waking up from a dead sleep, but like,
doesn't that feel nice to have people that like are thinking about you and how you're doing and care about?
But it made me think, like, am I not worried enough about it? But no, I get it. It's like
it felt like an active addiction moment, even though we're sober. It was like it just felt dirty. I was like,
I mean, those things in the past would have took me out. You know what I mean? That stuff like this, not having the foundation in recovery, the grooms that I'd been in, and understanding that these things are going to come. The past me would have ran straight to the bar and looked for the coke guy. The past me would have went and tried to, numb that noise. And now I'm able to pick up the phone. I'm able to talk to my friends. I'm able to be vulnerable and open and honest about it.
And just the simple fact that drugs and alcohol just don't work anymore. I mean, they the consequences from it supersede that moment that you're going through. I mean, that's just enough right there. It's not even.
You know what happened when I got here?
What's that?
When I pulled up here, like all day. So, like it's been remarkable. Like the last couple days have been like hard, and today was like I told you I just knots in my chest, and just like it's been hard. I pull up and I see Shelby, and I look in the back seat and I see Charlotte, and I look and she sees me, and she's got a passy in, and she just starts smiling, and like instantly all of that garbage that was it's filling my head, all of the just whatever just disappeared, man.
She's great. The other night Joel was over here and she's sitting in her high chair, and like it's just like she's developing so quick, like on a mental level of just like understanding. And she's sitting there eating, and Joel looks over and she just starts waving at him. It's just,
what color are her eyes? Are they like green?
I think they're. I don't know. They're kind of a mix between. But
they look like a bluish green hazel.
Yeah, they've got some. They're not
she's
like
clear eyed.
Even now, just talking about her, I feel like
she's awesome.
God's good, man.
Everybody loves that kid. Like it's so cool to see. Like I remember when Alan came back, or I seen like Bob and Lori, like I'll walk in and I don't have her, and they're like, hey Paul, where's Charlotte? Like oh, she's at home. Oh,
can I borrow her for the night, please?
Yeah, and it's really cool to see how much just that, like that's the gratitude thing. Like I'm grateful because I get to experience being a dad.
Yeah,
but I get to be a dad to Charlotte. Like Charlotte is just
you made that.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. I tell you, we went to daycare to pick her up yesterday, and yesterday was the first day I went and picked her up, and that was different because I walk in and Shelby was with me, and I was like, "Let me go in because I haven't got to go pick her up." And she's like, "All right, you go in first." And you walk in the front door, you sign her out, and then you walk in another door, and then her room's just outside of that room. But as soon as I walk in, I could hear her. not talking, but banging toys against other toys. And I just know her cadence, man. Like, like at Charlotte. And I open the door and she's sitting on the floor. And as soon as she sees me, I thought she was going to cry. Like, she just drops everything. Like, Daddy. And that was such an rewarding feeling to know that she's been sitting there waiting on Daddy to get that. You know what I mean? And then
she don't like daycare.
No, she don't like it. No, I don't know. She's doing good. I mean, but the last couple nights that she's been home, I mean, she wants to be attached to you. Like when we were doing that business meeting here, night, she didn't want to be on the other side.
Slide her right over there.
Yeah, she had to be sitting right next in between the two of us eating her snacks. Like she was not going to sit over there and eat her snacks. Yeah.
Were you guys watching me on the laptop? Because I could see you guys from up there. You're looking at the screen. I could see her just over there looking at the thing.
Yeah, it's
involved, man.
It's cool, man. So, do we want to talk about it?
Or Saturday? Or
what?
Are we waiting?
Talking homes?
Yeah.
I mean, we're free to talk about it.
All right. So I don't.
7:15 right now.
What time you guys got to go?
I didn't know when my phone was going to die. I gotta work. So.
All right. Tune in next week.
Tune in next week. Big announcement.
We got a really cool announcement. A lot of you probably already know about it. But we'll save that for the meeting on the 2nd. We're going to try to do another podcast next week. Hopefully we've got I'm going to turn one of the rooms here in the house into a studio. So hopefully we've got that looking cool and set up. So
let's talk about the next podcast before the 2nd.
What about it?
Yeah.
What?
We don't need to wait till the 2nd to...
Oh, you mean talk about... Okay.
Yeah, I mean, go over it, our visions and stuff.
Yeah. I asked JT if he wanted to come on. He said he'd come on.
All right.
Maybe we'll have JT in here next week.
Yeah, catch him on or later in the evening. I mean, because he's working 12-hour days, right?
Dude, once I get that room set up and it's like I don't have to put this together and break it down, it's like we can just come in and sit down and record. Like it's gonna be a lot easier. We like whatever time. I mean, we've been doing this
Lunch
for
on Sunday.
Hour 15 minutes. Yeah. So, all right. My name is Paul.
I'm Joel.
Andrew.
And this is Project. This has been episode 11. We thank you all for checking it out. Follow us on Facebook. I'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.
Bye.
See you guys.
Welcome, everybody.